Welcome back to another episode of Toxic Mold Sex Stories, Malachi's Message. I'm Elizabeth Kripe. I'm going to be co-hosting this episode with Emily Rochelle, who is the co-founder and board chair of Malachi's Message. April is Autism Awareness Month, so we thought it would be fitting to interview some families who have gone through mold and who have also experienced the diagnosis of autism for one of their children, to talk about the connection and just to hear how they handled it. So today we're joined by Chris and Christina Greenfield. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So we want to start just with the precedent, and their video will be also posted of their mold story, but they experienced mold, and that is a story for another day that you need to come back and listen to because it's incredible. Today we're going to be talking about their experience with autism. So before you went through mold, and I know this question was asked before we started this interview, before you went through mold and before you went through the process with your daughter, was autism something that was even on your radar? Was it something you knew about? Was it a topic that you were well informed with?
No, not at all. We were aware. We knew what autism. We thought we knew what autism was. We have heard about it in the news, and just you understand. I think maybe I don't know if it's commercialized is the term, but maybe the way that it's portrayed on TV, you're aware. But prior to the diagnosis, it was not on our radar at all. Our oldest daughter, who is the one that ultimately got diagnosed, she was meeting all of her developmental milestones. I was really diligent about every time we went to a pediatrician appointment. I was counting the words that I'd heard her say, leading up to that pediatrician appointment. So I was like, I want to get it right. I want to make sure I'm reporting the right thing. And every time she was meeting her milestones, and we were, she was our first. So we were Googling like, what is a child supposed to be doing at this age, at this many months, at this, and we were really, really, we thought diligent with it. And so when we got the diagnosis, we thought they were wrong. We thought they were wrong. Yeah, it was not on our radar.
What were the signs or challenges that the doctors were saying she had that met the criteria for autism?
Yeah, so I think the best, in my mind, it was such a subtle progression into the diagnosis from our perspective, because it was just like these small incremental regressions. But from the professional's perspective, it was clear to them. And so she was going to a Montessori school at the time, and they don't like to label people. And so there was quite some time that they didn't tell us that anything was wrong. And then suddenly they said, she's not really playing with her peers. And up to that point, it might have been kind of normal that there was parallel play, but she should have been growing out of the parallel play, and she should have been interacting, and she wasn't. And then her fits, when they were trying to redirect her to do kind of a non-preferred task, it was just explosive, and it was very difficult to calm her down. And then she was very difficult to potty train. She almost didn't meet the cutoff to get to the next class. I can't remember what that was, but she was right there on the very edge. And she was stemming, and so for her stemming was flapping. She was flapping her hands, and again, we didn't know what stemming was at all, so that didn't catch our eye. We just thought, oh, that's cute, she does that when she's excited, or because it was always something that she was kind of hyped up, and then she would start flapping her hands. So we didn't realize that was actually a way for her to kind of release her energy, and called stemming.
She would hum when she ate.
Yeah, humming when she ate, which again, we thought that was just a cute thing that she did, but it's like every bite is the whole meal. And speech, it was primarily speech. So they had, the Montessori school had us working with ECI to try to get her speech up to par, and that this was before she was 3, so this was about 2, I guess, that they had us working with ECI. I think it was 2 or 2.5. They had to start working with ECI, but she didn't make much progress there. Her speech still remained very, very delayed. And so her Montessori teacher said, we really need to get her evaluated by the state, because at 3, the state of Texas takes over for her speech therapy, and we need to have her evaluated to see if she needs these, these resources. And so we just thought, okay, this is like the next level of speech, totally fine. So speech was very much on our radar, speech delays. but nothing else. And so again, at the time, we didn't realize what it was called, but she was engaging in something called echolalia, which is where they just, they repeat phrases. So she would see movies. She loved movies. You could turn on the TV and she would just zone out. Just, you couldn't even say anything to her. She was just watching the movie, you know, you could not distract her. But she would come up with phrases. So from whatever movie she was watching, she would say that phrase. And so I was counting the words again. I was like, oh, she said, you know, whatever it was that Nemo said. And I'm like, that's 10 words, you know, but she wasn't using it contextually. It was just randomly that she would say any sentence. And then she started to lose her eye contact, which is again, something that we didn't really realize was a loss of eye contact. We just thought, oh, she's very stubborn. You know, she's not going to respond when she doesn't want to respond. If she's busy doing something and I call her name, she's not going to look up because she, you know, this is like a power play. We just thought the school called her very spirited. And so we're like, oh, she's spirited. She's spirited. Yeah, of course. You know, she's very spirited. Sorry, my dog just pulled my computer off my thing. So anyways, spirited is what we thought that she was. But then too, she would run away. So Chris and I were like, we need to get her one of those backpack leashes, you know, because we couldn't go anywhere with her without constantly having a hand on her, because if you looked away, she was gone across a parking lot, you know, anywhere. We couldn't go to like crowded places.
She wouldn't stop if you called her. If you took her to a park, you had to be eyes on, hands on the whole time.
Yeah, walk right into the water, you know, climb up on something, jump right off. So unaware of fear is what we learned it was categorized. But again, we just thought she's spirited and fearless. You know, this is how we categorized her. She's spirited and fearless and speech delayed. That's what we thought. And so when the state evaluated her and they came back and they said it's non-categorical early childhood development because the state can't actually diagnose autism. They can just say what they believe the educational impairment is. And so they put her in this non-categorical category with the subcategory of autism. And then they advised, you know, you need to go get a true diagnosis or go see if she qualifies for a true diagnosis. So that was, I believe it was December 17th of 2017 that we got that. So that was because my birthday is on the 21st and my husband and I were about to go on a date for my birthday. And then we got that news and it was just like, you know, we were mad. Our first reaction was anger. We were really angry because we were like, these people are out of their minds. Like they're just trying to put her in some kind of box, you know, and why? What is the motivation for this? You know, but we didn't believe it. And then, so we kind of regrouped and we're like, you know what? Doesn't matter what they say. She'll get the services that the school provides, and we're going to prove them wrong. We're going to go to Texas Children's Meyer Center and talk to a real developmental pediatrician, and she's just going to say we're bad parents, like we always thought we were. You know, like, she's just going to confirm that we don't know what we're doing, but we have a spirited child. And so by that time, I have my baby. I have Charlotte. We call her Charlie, and she is 3 months old by the time we go to Texas Children's. And so Chris is staying home with her because, again, we are just floating around. Like we don't understand we don't know this terrain. We're just going from step to step and we don't know what to expect. And so I'm like, oh, for a diagnosis for autism, I'm sure it's like probably several appointments, probably, you know, several times that they're going to observe her. And I mean, who knows? I'm sure there's very scientific things to it. You know, I just thought there was going to be a lot. So he's home with the baby and I take Elsa to the Meyer Center. And they had me fill out kind of a short questionnaire, and then the developmental pediatrician comes in and she's kind of interacting with Elsa and asking her questions and directing her to do things. And, you know, and I'm kind of sitting back and then I'm getting involved when she's telling me to be involved and stuff. But it was maybe 2 hours. And then, you know, so then she indicates that she's finished. And I think, okay, she's going to go tell me what the next step is. And she doesn't even leave the room. And she's like, yes, your daughter is autistic, you know? And I'm like, how do you know that? You know, so I'm like, you didn't go do any science or anything. You know, you just saw her for a couple of hours and she was tired. First of all, she's having a bad day, you know, and I had all these excuses and reasons why I thought she's not performed well today. you know. Um, but she, you know, was very clear to the doctor, and she of course had, you know, she had all these categories and it was a blur. So I still don't fully understand how exactly it was, everything was weighted, but she, you know, based on her observation, she says, yes, she's autistic. She is likely high functioning, potential oppositional defiance disorder, because she said, you know, she was very combative. And I was just offended, you know. I was like, well, I fought them on putting oppositional defiance disorder in her report, because for some reason it really meant something to me that they would try to put something in the report that wasn't definitive. Like, you know, I just thought, no, because I think you already had in your mind that she was autistic because we're here. And so all you did was prove yourself right, you know, because you already had this preconceived notion of her, which again, I'm just defensive at this point. You know, I'm defensive and I'm not accepting what's going on. So that's what I thought. And I latched onto the oppositional defiance disorder, and I wouldn't let them put that in the report. And they didn't, you know, they were like, whatever. I mean, it'll prove itself as she gets older. So, so then we pull her out of the Montessori school and we go to the public school so that she can receive the accommodations, the special accommodations through the public school. And so now, literally December 16th of 2017, we believed we were just I have learned that the term is neurotypical. It's not normal, because what is normal, right? But we just believed that we were a neurotypical family. And that, you know, Chris and I are both the babies of our family. And so we just thought, we just don't know what we're doing. We're just bad parents. And we can learn to be better parents, but, you know, there's nothing wrong with our children. And then December 17th hit, and now we have a newborn and a special needs child. And our world just, at that time, that was the worst news that we had ever received. Because like I said, we were just, you know, I don't know if other people watching this, they might imagine that they believe that they have a normal child who's going to have a normal future. And then to be told, you know, she has a disability. And we don't know what that means for her progress right now. We don't know what that means about her development, if she's going to ever be able to, you know, live on her own or have a family of her own or have those choices. You know, it was just all up in the air.
Chris, I'm curious, what were you thinking at this point throughout this process and getting that diagnosis at that time? What were your thoughts? How were you handling this?
I was in denial about it, you know. I had issues growing up when I was, you know, learning to talk. I was just like, hey, she's just like me.
And I thought the same. I was like, she's just like me. We're difficult to get along with. We're not everybody's cup of tea. You know, I was like, I'm spirited, she's spirited. He had a speech issue. You know, I think it was, how old were you, babe, before you started really talking on your own?
Kindergarten, you know, 5 or 6. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had all these reasons why, you know, we justified and thought that she was fine up until the doctors told us that she wasn't.
Man.
So
I want to, sorry, Emily, I'm going to take a quick pause to thank one of our sponsors, and we want to come back and hear about the correlation of mold and where your daughter's at today, because she ran up to me and gave me a hug the other day. And I almost, after hearing and reading more of your story, looking back 2 days ago when I was reading more of it, I like started to cry. I'm like, she just ran up to me and gave me a hug. Like, I had no clue this was even part of her journey at all. She's the sweetest thing. Yeah. But I want to hear more about that correlation and where you guys are at today, because it's incredible. But first, we need to take a quick break. And we need to thank the Whole House out of Sugar Land, Texas. They are one of our event sponsors for our current Pie in the Face fundraiser. Monica is the founder of the Whole House, and the idea for the Whole House was born out of a personal need. She was raising a newborn, a 2-year-old, tending to a husband on bed rest who's battling a terminal disease, and fighting an increasing number of symptoms from her own autoimmune problems. Between their chemo appointments and hospital stays, it was a struggle for her to get food on the table at night, more or less clean the floors. When she started to reach out to different companies about cleaning supplies, she was constantly told that they would not use non-toxic chemicals to clean. From there, she started the whole house, and their process was designed to improve air quality and protect the most susceptible and chemically sensitive of clients, from newborns to the immunosuppressed. They ensure that their staff arrives each day without perfumes or fragrances. The products that they choose come from companies that align with their values of transparency, safety, and environmental impact. Rest assured, you will never find endocrine disruptors, neurotoxins, developmental toxins, behavioral toxins, reproductive toxins, or carcinogens in their cleaning products. So check them out. They're out of Sugar Land, Texas. And thank you so much for sponsoring our current Pie in the Face event. Emily, go for it.
About to cry, just thinking of what y'all were going through at that time. What happened next? So now you have the diagnosis and you're trying to accept it. Were you looking into it? She went into public school. What happened next?
So we, I think we were at the point of like begrudgingly accepting it. You know, we still thought they were wrong. The doctors were wrong, but we thought, you know, it can't hurt her to get this extra help and these accommodations. It's not going to hurt. And so let's just go along with it. Let's play along. And in the meanwhile, I'm going to be in the background doing all my research and finding somebody who can help us get this diagnosis reversed. You know, that was my goal for a long time. I wanted to reverse the diagnosis because I just thought the stigma is going to follow her around. And exactly what happened with the doctor when we walked in the door and they knew that we had a suspicion of autism, they're just going to plop her right in the box, you know? And so I just thought, I've got to save her from this box. And so I'm searching on this Facebook moms group, and I'm looking for, you know, doctors and autism and, you know, anything. And I had no idea what I'm looking for. I'm just looking for doctors and autism, just anybody who can help me. And I came across a functional medicine doctor in the area who works with a lot of children who are on the spectrum. And so I was like, okay, perfect. We're going to go see this doctor. And so we went to go see this doctor. And, you know, Chris was, he can tell you how he felt about that, but it was a struggle. It was a struggle because it was very, very different than the medical care that we had been receiving up to that point. You know, just the traditional medical care, going to the traditional doctors and being told, you know, she's fine. It's just, you know, she's chronically constipated, give her Miralax. She's got another ear infection, give her antibiotic. You know, it's just like these same problems kept popping up, and they just kept saying, just throwing another prescription at us. You know, and we're just going, okay, you know, okay, like, why would you lead us astray? Why would you tell us something that wasn't actually helping us? You know, we didn't question it because that's how we grew up. So I find this doctor, and she starts going into this this idea of we need to do genetic testing, and then if we do genetic testing, we can figure out, you know, what she's working with. We can figure out what switches have been flipped on and off, and you know, what we can figure out the cards that she's dealt. We can know what cards that she's dealt, and that way we can kind of strategize and see what we can do from an environmental perspective. And so so we did that, and very quickly realized that she doesn't have, there's some gene that's like the bad gene, the bad autism gene. She didn't have that. So she was like, that's good news. But the bad news is her body doesn't detox well. Like her rate of methylation is extremely low. And she doesn't eliminate toxins from her body. And so she's like, that can cause inflammation. So this is the first time I'm hearing of inflammation, which now is like the word I hear all the time, but this is the first I'm hearing of it. Inflammation, we got to control the inflammation. And so we start taking supplements, we start doing creams, we start eliminating gluten and dairy from her diet. And one of her other symptoms is that she never slept. She never slept. By this time, she's 3.5, 4, maybe. She never slept, not through the night ever. So we're exhausted. We're exhausted, and come to find out we're also sick, and we're dealing with this. And so we eliminate gluten and dairy, and immediately that first night, she slept through the night. Like the first night eliminating dairy, because we had been giving her so much, because I had weaned her off of nursing when the new baby was born. And then we just started giving her bottles and bottles and bottles of milk. So much milk.
I would take a cooler that would have like 4 to 6 bottles of milk in it and lay down in the floor of her bedroom and give her milk all night long.
on her own, because it was the only thing that seemed to soothe her, you know. And we were doing crazy things to try to get her to sleep, like things that I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe we did that. Like, I can't believe we did that. But yeah, he would do that because I was nursing the baby and trying to keep the baby asleep. So we were like tag teaming it. But so this doctor tells us some things to do to clean up environmentally to help clean up her body. And we do that, and we see some progress. But then time passes and she starts to wonder, well, why are we not seeing more progress? We should be seeing more progress, you know? And I honestly can't recall what flipped the switch for the doctor, but she decided to do some blood work. And again, at the time, I had no idea what this blood work is for. I'm sure she told me, but I didn't appreciate it. But she was testing her to see if she had been exposed to mold, because her genetic testing showed that she had a gene that makes her mold susceptible. And there's only like 20, you guys know this, but there's only 25% of the population, supposedly. I don't even believe that. I think there's way more, but supposedly there's only 25% of the population that have this gene that make you mold susceptible, and she has it. So she found out that she had been exposed to mold. And I remember being so confused when we were going over her labs, because the doctor was like, this is good news. She's got SIRS. She has chronic inflammatory response syndrome. We have a diagnosis. This is great news. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I have never heard of SIRS. And now you're telling me that she has an allergy. Like, I thought it was an allergy. You know, I thought she's saying she's allergic to mold. And I'm like, we live in Texas. Like, is this supposed to be a revelation? I mean, I'm not, I don't get it. And so she told me, well, you have to figure out where the mold is coming from. You need to test your house. And so she sent me home with this ERMI kit, which I'm like, what? Again, I'm like, what is this? It's an envelope with a Swiffer inside. And I'm like, I don't know, how is this a piece of our puzzle? You know, how, I do not understand. Although she gave me all this reading material and stuff to go learn about it myself, I'm like, I don't have time for that. I don't know what you're talking about. You said we have some sort of diagnosis, and now you're having me test my house for mold. I wait until the weekend. Like, I think that was probably a Monday. I like take my time. We're still living in the house. I do it on the weekend, and then I just plop it in the mail, like regular mail, not even rush. You know, I mean, I do not understand the implications of what she has told me. And so I follow the directions. I do the Swiffer test. I collect the dust. Again, I'm thinking this is stupid. You know, like, this is so stupid. And then we get the results back, and I'm like, what is all this red? Like, what is all this red? What is this talking about? I don't understand. I'm trying to read these results. I don't understand what it's talking about. But it says that we have very high levels of mold in the home. And so so I tell the doctor that this is what we found. She guides me to a person who helps people who have found out that they have mold. She's like a consultant or something, and she starts talking to us about all of the steps that will have to happen. You know, you need to actually get an inspector to come in, and the inspector needs to verify where the source of the mold and how bad the mold is. And I'd called several inspectors, and several of them were like, oh no, an ERMI test? Like, no, that doesn't even mean anything. It could be that you did it wrong. You know, it doesn't mean anything. But then the doctor's telling me it does mean something, and they're telling me it doesn't mean something. So already I'm confused, even more confused, you know.
Because they want to come in and test.
Yeah, they want to come in.
They want to come in and test
their own way, you know.
Yes.
And most of them say, look, we're going to do an air quality test, and the air quality test is going to tell you, you know. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Why would I think a licensed professional would lead me astray? Or how would I believe that licensed professionals, like there's so much variation between how you can actually inspect for mold, you know? I mean, I had no idea. So so as the story is going on, we're trying to untangle and figure all this out. I tell our chiropractor, because we go in to see her, and she's had a lot of issues with Elsa just not following instructions, and like, it's very difficult to get her adjusted, you know. And so I asked her, I was like, hey, have you ever heard of people getting sick from mold? And she was like, actually, my neighbor had this happen, and you should call her. And so she gave me her phone number, and I called her neighbor, and her neighbor was not available. She was not feeling well, and so she said, you should call my friend Emily. And I don't know who Emily is at the time. Emily is just a name of somebody I'm supposed to call who knows something about mold. Maybe she's been through it before, you know. So I call Emily, and she very graciously calls me back. Although I tell her right off the bat, she's like, how can I help you? And I'm like, I don't know why I'm calling you. Like, I'm confused. And so I just start telling her everything that happened, and she's quiet. Emily's quiet for a minute, and she explains that she's gone through something similar with her son being diagnosed. With her son being diagnosed with autism and finding out that they were living in mold. And for the first time, things start to click, you know. And at that point, we had already come to acceptance, right? So we're just like, okay, she's autistic, but there's nothing wrong with her. She's autistic, and we're gonna help where we can. And in this moment, you know, my initial instincts, which was that they're wrong, she's not autistic. I was like, could I have been right? Could I have been right all this time? You know? And so after I got off the phone with Emily, and she explained the connection and the possibility, she explained the medical history, she explained her experience, and it was all so very similar to ours that I was like, it's possible, you know? And in that moment, we're so overwhelmed with what everybody's telling us. You know, we have to throw away everything in our house. We have to find money to remediate because the insurance company doesn't cover any of this, and this is not a small amount of money. And we're like, is this possible? Is this crazy? You know, like, what is this bizarro world that we have found ourselves in? Like, a few months ago, we were just a normal family, and now, you know, we're losing. We lost what we thought we had a normal future for our child, and now we're losing everything that we own. Like, I have never heard of this happening to anybody, and it's just so confusing. And so talking to Emily was the validation that we needed, and it gave us the strength and just the conviction to move forward in what seemed like an absolutely insane path for us to take for our family. But I remember going to tell Chris what she had just told me, and I remember his face, and he was just like, okay, like, we're gonna do this, you know. And then which is insane, because at that time, like, we'll probably talk about it during our mold story, but we did not get along at all. We didn't agree on anything. We didn't agree on dinner, much less throwing away everything that we own and, you know, going through this whole process. So,
And at that point, I was like, why not? I mean, like, if it's not going to get any worse.
right.
If it's going to get better, or it's going to stay the same. So it's just stuff. Let's go. And I think
Go ahead, sorry.
and at that, I mean, it was that day, I think, wasn't it, that we packed them up and took them to your mom's?
Yeah, they never went back. They never went back after that day.
I can't imagine how confused you guys must have been during that time. You have autism diagnosis, now somebody's telling you she has SIRS, and then do an ERMI, and then the licensed professionals are telling you the ERMI is no good, and let's do an air sample. I mean, and then you call me, and I'm like, mold could be the reason, you know?
And it's Christmas.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
I would have been like, let's go to the liquor store, because I've had enough.
So much liquor. Yes. No, it was yes, confusing to say the least. But the moment of clarity was when you and I talked. And I kind of mentioned this before, but like, I don't think, I mean, I grew up with faith, and I think I've maintained the faith, but with the autism diagnosis, it became difficult, and her symptoms, it was very difficult for us to go to church. And the church that I grew up in, the people there, and it was probably only a handful of people, I'm sure many were, you know, gracious and didn't say anything, but the ones that gave her the side eye and were like not gracious, and they were rude, and they were questioning why she was on an iPad, and they were questioning why she wasn't paying attention, and, you know, and it was just the looks and stuff. It was a very unwelcoming place. And so we stopped going to church. And I look back now, and I see how I can see God in this. And it's not, you know, we were never alone. And it's not a coincidence that I was brought to Emily. And it's not a coincidence that she gave of her time in explaining to a random stranger, you know, what she could possibly be going through. And it's no coincidence that Chris and I agreed on this huge thing when we were talking about divorce. I mean, constantly, you know?
I slept upstairs for what, 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah, we weren't
At that
even
point.
sleeping in the same room. I mean, allegedly it was because he was snoring, but it was no loss to me. You know, I was like, that's great. You know, if you don't want to stop snoring, sleep upstairs. I do not mind. So our relationship was not doing well. And so these things that brought us to the place where we're like, oh my God, of all this confusion, finally things are making sense. You know, we're finally, the veil has been lifted, our eyes are open. That was God. That was God. He was there the whole time.
I can't imagine how hard it is on a marriage, because when you have a child who has challenges, and like you said, Christina, it's just going out in public, it's hard. It's really hard. And then to also have that side judgment too, and you see the parents looking at your child in a different way, it just tears your heart open.
Yeah, it does. And you want to scream at them. Like you're just, there's so much anger, you know, you're constantly walking around with anger and like, why don't you understand? And she's just a child, and you know, and I would go back and forth with like, do I explain her diagnosis to people or do I not? You know, do I explain it? Do I not? And ultimately, there was a period of time when I was like, nobody has to know. It's not, you know, she hasn't given me consent to share her story, you know, with other people. But ultimately I found like, at least if I explain, people are a little bit more gracious, you know, people give her a little bit more understanding, and they're not so quick to just be like, oh, this is a bad child, it's a bad parent, you know? So it used to, I shared with Elizabeth when she said, I didn't know that autism was part of her story because her children go to school with my children now. And she said, I didn't realize that it was part of your story. And I said, I kind of love that, because it used to be the first thing that I would tell anybody about her, you know, is just like, hey, you know, she struggles with this and she struggles with that. And, you know, please just give her grace. Like, you know, she just has a different way of thinking and a different way of processing and a different way of speaking. And I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to do that. So we've been out of mold for about 1.5 years. And continuing through the detox and the healing process. And before we were out of the house, we actually had seen we were seeing, so I told you about the developmental pediatrician. She had a regular pediatrician. We had the functional medicine doctor. We had occupational therapy, physical therapy. We had speech therapy, and then we had a neurologist. And the neurologist was, you know, he was talking about, well, maybe she also has ADHD, and maybe we need to medicate her, and you know, maybe she's having seizures, and because the eye contact thing, maybe it's seizures. And so we actually had, it was like I think it was a 72-hour thing where they put the connectors all over her head, and she had to wear a backpack, and we had to have the video camera on her the whole time to see if she was having seizures.
Well, she totally remembers now, and we'll tell you about how the doctor put something on a helmet on her head, and she had to wear a backpack. And you're like, sure, I'm glad you remember that, and you can tell me about it.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that the school would say about her, is that she's not able to retain information. And so they'd said, we were actually fighting with them about accommodations, because by the time we brought the inflammation down a little bit, but before we found out about the mold, they were like, well, she's not, her autism is not impeding her from an educational perspective, and so she qualifies for less accommodations, and she might qualify for no accommodations very soon. But they would acknowledge that she wasn't on grade level for reading or for, you know, basically anything. But they just said, well, it's not her autism because she makes eye contact, because her eye contact was getting a little bit better well, when we brought down the inflammation. So basically they just thought that she had a limited ability, like she had a limited ability, and she wasn't, you know, really going to learn, but it didn't qualify her for accommodations. And so we were fighting with the school, you know, already we're fighting with the school, and she had such anxiety even going to school. I mean, she would cry, and it was like, if we messed up the routine marginally, it was awful. The whole day was going to be awful if we just messed up a little bit in the routine of getting her to school. So anxiety was just, as a baby, as a child going to kindergarten, she had anxiety. Like, I can't even imagine, you know? And then with our limited ability to talk, like, we were just always terrified that something was going to happen to her, somebody was going to do something to her, and she couldn't tell us what was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, they're targeted by bullies.
Yeah, they are. And so then she comes home and she's having a bad day, but she can't tell us why, and we can't help explain what happened. We can't tell her what to do because we have no idea, you know. I mean, it was just absolutely awful. So we ended up pulling her from the school, and we found the new school that she goes to, which is, I mean, maybe the whole school is an accommodation because it's a beautiful way of learning, but all the children are given the same opportunities. There are no special needs accommodations. You know, I mean, she is in it with every single other child who is in her studio, and they all learn the same, you know, the same things, the same way. They don't have anything special for her, and she's thriving. She's doing so well. I mean, she's still a little bit delayed on like her reading. Her reading is, she's getting better, but she's not at level for other 7-year-olds. But I mean, to me, I think of, you know, she spent 4 years in mold. That's 4 years that was basically a pause on her.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, and people, even the neurologist said we took her back about a year after we had been out, or maybe was it 6 months after we'd been out?
We took her back very shortly. We hadn't even started Acting Academy yet. I think we'd been out just a few weeks. We were starting Acting Academy, or we had already started it. We were very shortly, you know, we were just started, and we were explaining to the neurologist. I'm just sitting there, and, you know, I'm just, hey, oh, by the way, she's got this. We've eliminated everything we eat. We've changed our way we live. We threw away everything we owned, and we moved. And the guy's like, well, that's good. Come back in a year and we'll see where you're at. And we came back, and, you know, I take Elsa into the doctor's office, and she's like, the doctor walks in, same doctor. She's like, hi, last time we were here, we were in a different room, and there was a bird trying to get in the window. Do you remember that? And the guy's like,
Oh my goodness.
okay, we're done here.
Yeah.
He's good.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what he said. He was like, there's nothing I can do for her. Don't bring her back unless she has another regression. Like, there's nothing for me.
Like, we can bring her back if we want to check up. I was, you know, I was like, she's reading delayed, but exactly what Christina just said. I mean, she's speech delayed, but we paused her development for 3 years. We paused that. And now it's every day is a new process. Every day is something new. Every day is a spontaneous conversation that we couldn't have a year and a half ago.
Yeah, there used to be no conversation. You could not say, how was your day? It had to be like, do you like blue or do you like brown? You know, it had to be like, give her a choice, and then she would kind of decide. But you couldn't just say, how was your day?
Yeah.
Who did you play with? Who is your friend? Who was mean to you?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, none of that.
The random stuff that comes up now, that she like, Dad, why don't you have a lightsaber? I don't have a lightsaber. Well, my friend's dad has a lightsaber, and my other friend's dad has a lightsaber. Daddy, I want to buy you a lightsaber. Can I buy you a lightsaber?
Oh.
Sure, you can. Yeah, let's go. We'll go lightsaber shopping. Yeah, I'm down. But that conversation never happened. That wasn't something that we had with our daughter.
No. And so it's just.
So do you feel like you kind of have your daughter back now? Like you're able to kind of relax a little bit again?
Yes. It's like, she is so as I was putting pictures together for you, Elizabeth, I'm like going through all the pictures, and it's like, before mold, she was so alert. There's so many pictures of her looking at the camera. Even as a tiny, tiny baby, she was alert. She was in it, you know, she was understanding what was going on. She was looking, she was curious. And then in that time that we were in mold, a lot of the pictures are like, she's kind of staring off. She looks like she's thinking about something else. You can see on my face, like, almost, unless it was a picture where I was told to smile, and if I'm in the background of a picture, I'm like I was so serious, you know, like nothing was fun or lighthearted. Everything was stressful. Family events, we couldn't go anywhere. God forbid we try to go to a carnival. I mean, that would have been just a death wish for us, with all the sounds and the smells and all of her sensory sensitivities and stuff. I mean, the lines, you know. And today she's in gymnastics. She's following instructions. Like I said, she's in school with no special accommodations. We went to the Houston rodeo twice, like a Saturday and a Sunday, and didn't even think twice about it, and had a great time. Went
went to the county fair last weekend or 2 weekends ago and rode the tilt-a-whirl as a family, all of us screaming and laughing.
Yeah, like we were having fun. And I remember vividly watching another mom like walk through a store with her children, and they were just walking behind her, like little ducks. And I remember being so jealous, like while we were going through the thick of it. I just remember being like, that'll never be me. Like, that'll never be me, because I can't, if I walk ahead of her, she's walking the other way, like there's no, just come with me, follow me. There's none of that. There was none of that. And while we were walking through the crowd at the rodeo, and we're all just kind of like, I mean, it's so crowded, and it's actually kind of awful, but it's like, but we're just walking through the crowd, and nobody, she wasn't tied to anybody. We didn't have to like tether her to us. She was right there with us, behind us. She knew what she was supposed to do, and she was doing it. And we just enjoyed ourselves. She's the baby that I knew that she was. She's back.
How soon after you got her out of the environment did you actually see her coming back to herself?
That's a good question. I really don't remember, because I think I was in a place where I was hopeful that we would see a change. I was more hopeful that we just wouldn't see a continued regression. So I wasn't necessarily like watching her with an eye towards improvement. I was just kind of like in survival mode and thinking it can't be worse. And so by the time I started realizing that she was getting so much better, and then other people were commenting, my parents were saying, she's different, she's fun, she's not what she was before. And that was really validating, but I don't remember exactly when.
Within a week and a half, she had her hair down for the first time in 3 years.
Oh yeah. Yeah, she used to wear her hair up in a dinosaur. She called it a dinosaur egg. It was a tight bun on the top of her head. She didn't want it touching her skin at all. And yeah, I guess it like you said, I guess it was a week later, but she had it down, and we were just like, and she has this beautiful hair. So we were like, oh my God, like, could it be?
Well, I have to tell you guys that your family, within the first 2 weeks of my girls starting school there, your family had me in tears with my husband, as honest to God, like as a very thankful, grateful answer to prayer, because our youngest has a lot of sensitivities too. And we're still having her tested for a few different things, but to the point where she was really worried about being able to feel normal in school. And when I found out you guys had put in a system in the classroom to help with the air purification system, I was relieved as a parent, because that was my worst fear, right? Texas schools are horrible. So going for air quality. So going, oh, she might actually be okay. And I remember my husband being like, who are these people? They're like our angels. And then when Brooklyn, she came home the other day, and still like, is she going to be able to have a normal, right? Because she has so many sensitivities and food allergies. And I overheard her talking to her sister about how, and I told you, Christina, how, oh no, but I switched my snack with Elsa, or I switched my snack with Charlie. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, she's going to be normal. Like, because your kids were there too. She actually like could have a normal, like, you swap things at lunch, and most of it she can't swap or without getting very sick. So we've had many tears in our house out of gratefulness that you guys, like, somehow God put us in the same classroom on the same campus. And
we can go out to dinner together.
Pardon?
We can go out to dinner together, like two
I know.
families.
Isn't that fun? And when people look at one of us weird, they'll be looking at all of us weird, because we'll all be asking the same questions.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I love that.
But it's you talked earlier about, maybe we're just bad parents, and everything I know Emily and I have talked about, and everything we've heard from you guys and about you, is that you are amazing. Like, you guys just kept moving forward, even when it sounds like, which we'll talk about later, like your home, your marriage, everything was kind of up in the air. You still push through for your kids, which is amazing and so commendable. And as parents, I applaud you. That is not something we hear from a lot of people, that they literally move heaven and earth to make sure that their kids are taken care of and they have the best chance at healing. I talked to a mom yesterday whose child is diagnosed with autism, and I can't share the story either, but they have also been in a moldy situation. And she said that she was told by their doctors to just kind of maintain the situation until they're 18 and then put them in a home. And hearing your guys' passion behind that, even when things weren't great between you, going, no, that's not the answer. Like, we're going to find the answer beyond denial, and we're going to do what's best for our child, is just commendable. So thank you for being incredible parents and showing other people that it is possible. It's a lot of work and exhausting, but it is possible.
Yeah, it is. It is possible. And, you know, if there's ever an opportunity for me to pay it forward in the way that Emily changed the trajectory or put us on a trajectory, you know, for our own lives, I mean, if that can be part of our story, you know, helping at least even one person, then I want to do that. Because like I said, there's a common theme in our life up to this point of just kind of being blissfully unaware. Like, yeah, we were homeowners, but we didn't know how an AC system worked. We didn't know what mold meant. We didn't know that insurance didn't cover mold. We didn't know that mold could do this to our child, you know? So many things that I just feel now are just unexcusable for us to not know, but it's common that a lot of people don't know unless you have to know. And so, you know, it's like, it's programs like this that I hope that people, even people that don't know anything about mold, especially people that don't know anything about mold, I hope that they're listening, and I hope that they click, and I hope that something clicks in their head, if it could possibly be part of their story, that they just look into it. Just look into it. Just ask the questions, you know, don't be afraid of the answer, because the answer is going to lead you in the right direction. The answer to the question that you don't want to ask is the arrow pointing you down that road that you never thought you'd have to go down, you know? So I can't thank you enough, Emily. I can't thank you enough. And you brought my new best friend, Elizabeth, even though I've only seen her once. I gave her a big old hug. Y'all are
On a bad day too.
Y'all are my best friends that I haven't even hugged yet. So,
well,
no.
Christina, where can people find you if they want to connect with you guys? Where can they find you? Because you have such a platform that you're building. Where can they connect with you?
Yeah, I am, and it's a little bit part of our healing story, actually. Is telling our story and then helping other people get curious. So I've created an Instagram called Rebuilding Revival, because we're also building a home. So right now we're renting. Well, we're hoping to build a home. We'll see how all the market fluctuations, if that gets, but if not, again, that's the arrow pointing us in the direction that we need to wait. But I want people to be so curious. So Rebuilding Revival is the Instagram, and it's also on Facebook. And I've created a blog, but my husband hasn't made it live yet, where I'll be writing about stuff that I'm learning. So I'm just trying to learn about how to build a healthy house. And one of the inspirations was, you know, I asked Emily if I could talk to Josh before we even started interviewing builders. And I was like, Josh, what would you do? What would you ask for when you're building a home? What are you looking for? What do I need to ask builders if they're capable of? And he talked to me for probably 2 hours, like with his kids in the background, you know, I could hear his son in the background, and he's giving of his own time to talk to me and help guide me. And so I might not have that expertise, but I can read and I can try to learn and I can try to help people get curious. So that's kind of what I use my platform for, is just to help people get educated on all the things that I didn't know a short time ago, and help people get curious and help people to just know that, you know, just don't accept anything. Trust your gut. Don't accept answers that don't resonate with you. Not even from people that should know, you know, doctors, other professionals. Ask your own questions, do your own research, and get a second opinion.
And a third opinion.
And a third.
And a fourth if needed.
Well, thank you.
I just want to say that Christina's Instagram account, I absolutely adore and love. It's not only so educational, but it's fun. And everything she's been putting up there is spot on. Like how you were educating people on materials and what to do and what not to do. It's spot on. And so your account is great. I appreciate your account.
Thank you very much. Well, it started with the direction that I received from you guys. So comes from a good.
Well, thank you guys for coming on today and sharing your daughter's story, or your daughter Elsa's story. Sorry. and come back to hear their whole mold story because it's a really good one. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into it.
And as always, if anybody listening is going through mold or has been through mold, please be reminded that you are not alone and you are not crazy.
Yes, you're definitely not alone and not crazy.